The New York Jets dropped Flight 2022 yesterday. I finally watched it, and I am here for my review and recap. Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary, back with another video, and today I'll be recapping Flight 2022. Before we get started today, I just wanted to mention you can follow on social media if you haven't already. You could also check out the Just Jets podcast, wherever it is that you get your podcast. New episodes drop every single Monday. And last but not least, you know the drill. Check out the Patreon for bonus New York Jets content. So first and foremost, I mean, this Jets crew, the film crew, is just downright phenomenal. The behind the scenes look that you're able to get through this documentary is absolutely insane. I was ready to run through a brick wall through the entire thing. It's such a good watch. If you haven't seen it yet, I have no idea what you're waiting for, but you better get on that. So I'm going to run through these episode by episode. So if you haven't seen it yet and don't want spoilers, not that I'm going like crazy in-depth spoilers on these or big breakdowns, but I kind of just want to talk about each episode and what I like the most from it. You could pause and come back, or if you want to just watch it through, let's do that too. That's fine. So episode 1, I mean, Rich Eisen being the narrator for it is just perfect. His voice is phenomenal. That gets you amped right away. I loved when we were able to see Robert Saleh talking about how important it is to add veterans to the room with playoff experience, because that's kind of what building the culture is all about, right? Like, yes, you want to build through the draft and you want to have a young core, but you also have to learn how to win in this league. And getting guys who have done that before and had, and been at the ultimate pinnacle of success coming in here and being leaders, like that matters. And most of the guys that they signed are still in their prime for the most part. It's not like they signed a veteran that's over the hill and it's like, I don't expect to get much out of him. No, Laken Tomlinson's going to be here for a little bit and be a high level player. CJ Uzomah is expected to have a big impact. DJ Reed has had playoff success. Obviously, they've had Jordan Whitehead, who has playoff success. So they added a lot of key veterans in that regard. Also, didn't know that Adam Schefter grew up a Jets fan. Obviously, he grew up on Long Island, which is pretty cool. But he was talking about how desperately Jet fans want it and how he knows so many Jet fans. And I thought that was pretty cool. I also liked from this episode the Zach Wilson section comparing his year one to his freshman year, and then how he improved year over year, especially jumping to that sophomore season, and how this is kind of like his sophomore season now in the NFL. That excited me because there were some things that he was going back on tape and realizing, and I think it's good that he's, figuring this stuff out on his own, and I think we'll see him grow and develop his football IQ this year. They also in this episode, emphasized how much the Senior Bowl matters. And we saw like the Jets very clearly were trying to get a lot out of this. They drafted Jeremy Ruckert, who they saw up close. I think it was pretty obvious too, if you just picked up on who they were filming. They showed a lot of Trevor Penning and Perion Winfrey, who was guys that the Jets were linked to heading in through the draft process. So while they didn't end up being New York Jets, I think it was pretty obvious that they had a liking of those guys if they had a significant amount of film on them, because their face kept popping up in that first episode. But the first one was kind of more of like a getting through the process of like the scouting, which was cool. In the second episode, some things that I really liked. There's things that stood out to me. Why they added Laken Tomlinson. Durability. Durability matters, man, especially when this team seems to always be injured. You can't sign these guys or pay these guys and say, oh, I hope they bounce back and I hope they get healthy. Well, Laken's someone who just plays, man. It was something like 80 straight starts he hasn't missed. It's wild. I absolutely love Mike LaFleur, which is something that he did in this episode too. He was talking about, different guys and going in depth, and just this episode kind of focused on him earlier on. He was with his family, with his kids. I just hearing him talk about the game, like I don't think he's going to be here much longer, which I obviously don't want him to leave. I like Mike LaFleur a lot. I think he might be my favorite coach on this team, or even right ahead of Saleh right now. But I just found it, so interesting to get his perspective. And I think he did a great job last year, and I'm excited to see him on the field. And look, if he gets hired away, that's a good thing, because it means that Zach Wilson is very much so the guy, and the Jets are probably very, very good on offense. I found the conversation where they were talking with the analytics guys about, it was a little bit about positional value, but it was also kind of just about like, oh, you got to pay to get this. And I just find that stuff interesting. It wasn't a huge emphasis, but in these meetings, something else that they talked about, which was a much bigger emphasis, the next couple of things really in my notes here, their value, how much they value high character guys. And Robert Saleh was talking about the Navy and how in the Navy, obviously there's a little bit of a scale of trust level and, being what you're able to produce or put out. And obviously you want to be in the quadrant where you have a high level of production and are very trustworthy. But they would rather take the guy who maybe isn't as trustworthy but is very productive. They would rather pass on that and take the guy who you can trust a little bit more, but the production maybe isn't as close. So we kind of see their mindset on players and player evaluation there, which is cool. They also talked about wanting to add 2 tight ends, and the cap guy was like, yeah, we can do that. And they did. They ended up signing Uzama and Conklin. That 1-2 punch, I think, is going to be important. I liked how they obviously, they kind of showed why they came to the conclusion that they're going to bring Braxton Berrios back. And a big factor was his relationship with Zach Wilson. So getting someone that he's comfortable with coming back, I think, is going to be huge. And that's really, those are my main takeaways from the second episode. In episode 3, biggest takeaways here, this is kind of when they're going through some free agency. What I don't get is how Laken Tomlinson is so nasty on the field, because he just looks and sounds like a gigantic teddy bear anytime the guy talks. He seems like the absolute nicest guy in the world, but man, when he gets on the field, it's like a light switch goes on. He plays really nasty, but just seems like a genuine good dude, and glad he's on the team. I love that we got the background of Jordan Whitehead being at Darrelle Revis' draft party. So wild. I mean, obviously we knew that they were related, but just like they showed in this documentary the clip of him getting drafted, and they like paused it and spotlighted where Whitehead was. That's a really cool, 180 or 360, or, coming full circle here. Also, CJ Uzama, I think, is very much so like in the running to be a captain. If he's not, I would be surprised. Obviously, they had Zach as a captain last year, and they had, a few guys who they held to that high standard. I don't know why that was so difficult for me to get out. But CJ Uzama, just how he talks, I would be very surprised if he's not a captain, or if he isn't, he's still going to be a vocal leader on this team. He was in Cincinnati, and he will be here as well. And it was interesting, I thought, at the end of this episode, they really showed a lot of Ike Ekwonu so in depth. They were talking about a little bit of the scouting process, and they used him as the example. But I was almost surprised with how much that they showed him, that he wasn't even, it seemed like he wasn't even a thought for them at pick number 4. We would later find out in the 4th episode, which kind of more focused on the draft, which we'll get into in a second. It was sauce. They very much so. Robert Saleh was talking about this. They are built on edge rush, but they could also use the help, and they decided to go with Sauce Gardner. But anyway, into episode 4, I loved in the beginning the trade up to come get me line from Jermaine Johnson. We heard that line before, but that was awesome. The Douglas and Saleh fist bump before going into the draft room was just chills. Like I love it. I love the draft. I still am kind of surprised that they went with Sauce Gardner. Not mad at it, but just, again, I would have thought that the edge presence would have been the direction that they would go. But when you look back and see how excited they were, the reaction when Houston took Stingley and Sauce was on the board for them, they were amped, man. The Sauce and Ice Cube pick that they got together was really funny. Garrett Wilson, I absolutely love, and seeing the reaction when he was there. Them doing the crowd at Vegas doing the Jets chant in front of him was really cool. Supposedly Jermaine Johnson was the 8th ranked player on their board. Woody saying, let's do it. So this is something that I want to talk about a little bit. They're talking about trading up for Jermaine Johnson, who's falling, and they're trying to do it. Joe made a million calls. But Woody, don't stop getting involved. I know he's agreeing and approving, but just stay away, do your little TikToks, and let the football guys do the football decisions. The reaction when Joe Douglas realized that Kansas City was trading up, and then when they didn't take Jermaine Johnson, he was so anxious that they were going to take him. And they ended up obviously taking an edge a little bit later with George Karlaftis, but you could tell that he had the fear that they were trading up and taking their guy right in front of him. But the "we're on the effing clock" line was great. We all saw that one. and just rounding out and seeing the whole process of the NFL draft and how, the room, the inside look of that room was really cool. In episode 5, watching the tape on Sauce Gardner and seeing why they valued him so highly with Ulbrich was cool to watch. He pointed out a lot of things, like, for instance, the effort on tackles, which we all saw. He doesn't allow any kind of separation at all. It was really cool to see the reactions of the first 3 pick, like Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, and Jermaine Johnson walking around the facility. I like that a lot. I loved the playmaking emphasis. Like, on day 2 of the draft, they're showing the film of that room. And Joe Douglas is like, we did this. We have these assets to get playmakers. And they went up and they traded up and got aggressive for Breece Hall. And while it was something that also surprised me, and a lot of people did not like it, I get it. I agree. That's the reason why you have all these assets, is you have the ability to get flexible and make your team better. And for so long, the New York Jets, not only have they been bad, but they've been boring because of how poor they've been on offense. They're finally going to have some skill position players that are exciting. Like, think about it. Even when the Jets were at their peak, right, from when my generation of fandom in 2009 and 2010, it wasn't built on offense. Sure, they had some nice players, but they have the chance to be extremely, extremely explosive. And really, outside of 2015 was really the only time in my lifetime that I've seen a real explosive offense. I guess early 2000s, like Chad in 2002, was probably really, really good. But is it going to be at that level of the potential of explosiveness? Maybe not. The video of Bill Ruckert, Jeremy Ruckert's dad, is just, Bill's my hero. I need to meet him. Love the breakdown of film from Mike LaFleur, which, again, I told you guys at the top, but I think he's my favorite coach on this team. I absolutely can't get enough of when he speaks. He's so smart. The play design is so exciting, and I can't wait to see what he does with an improved offense, an improved offensive line. And the last thing really that stood out to me in the series and the episode, Robert Saleh is talking about closing the gap, winning divisional games, ending a playoff drought. Like, the Jets can't continue to lose games in their own division if they want to be competitive. So beat Miami, beat Buffalo, beat New England, beat the teams that you have to play twice a year, and take that step forward. But I love it. This is so much fun every year when this comes out. I binge watched it this morning when I woke up early, and now I made the video recap. So you guys let me know in the comments below what you thought of Flight 2022. Again, if for some reason you haven't watched it, please do. It's worth your while. Once again, I'm Matt O'Leary. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.